I might be a spoiled brat because of my parents, but I worked really hard.
Dr Harmeek Singh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You described yourself as from India to Dubai, but now a global citizen, citizen of the world. But we were talking a little bit just before we started, and you said a couple of words which I want to go deeper on later, but I'm going to mention them now so you can give a bit of context to your story. But you described yourself as a spoilt brat back in India, and a lifelong learner. And I think lifelong learning is something that I'm very, very passionate about and obsessed about, both for myself and I think for choosing how to make relationships, how to employ other people. And I'm always interested in the spoilt brat side of things, of people who've come from money and have probably not done as well as they should have done in their earlier days, and then managed to make that change in some way. So looking forward to hearing this story. So take us back to India and tell me about how your life as a spoilt brat began.
Back home in India, it's not as much as it was earlier. It was something that probably you will always find that nuclear families were not a part of it. So we had bigger families and things that probably was like with many siblings. But my family was a nuclear family, and I was the only son. And over there has got a little bit of a thing with sons being a bit of a treatment that you would probably get a little bit more extra. So I came from a background where my family had an entrepreneur background, working on for the electronics sector. We were amongst the first ones to actually come up with my parents to probably be the people to bring the change in the electronics industry over there. So they were rising at that point, and I was growing up, and at that point it was something that my parents, when they were busy and everything else, I was the complete darling to them, and anything that I used to speak or anything that I wanted was available for me.
How wealthy would you describe your family as back then? Because I know very little about India. I've never been, but it's definitely on my to-do list in the short term. But I think one of the things I do seem to understand is it's a country of very extremes in terms of wealth, like absolute wealth and absolute poverty at the same time. A, is that true, and B, were you on that real upper end of Indian wealth then?
We were on the upper end of the Indian wealth, but then again, I think poverty is not something that is limited to India. It's everywhere, and it's to do with that probably we have come a long way as from being India what it was when it received its independence from what it is right now. It's a rising nation, and what I see that poverty is something which is debatable, but then again for my family it was on the upper side of it. So we were having the kind of privilege to have, if there's a brand of a new automobile that's launched in India, so it would be the first 5 to buy.
Right.
So on those lines, at that point, it was something that probably now I can relate to it, because I can gauge what happened at that point because I was growing up. So when it comes easy for you, and when everything is available and accessible to you, you do not know what is the meaning of no or being denied. That's when you become a brat.
Hey, Matt here. Just interrupting myself quickly to say thank you for listening to No Bollocks. But did you also know I've got another podcast, Stripping Off with Matt Haycox? Very different. No Bollocks is the quick daily business tactics that you need. But Stripping Off, we go deep, deep, deep with a CEO, with a celebrity, with an athlete, with an international inspiring character. We find out what makes them tick, we find out how they got to where they got to, and we find out how you can learn and benefit from them too. So jump on over to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you listen to your content, and I'll see you on a future episode.
And I was going to say, how did it make you feel as a youngster? Because typically people who come from poverty, or whether that's extreme poverty or just from not having as much as they'd wanted as a child, build that great hunger to become entrepreneurs and to make money as they go older. I came from a very, very well off background. I mean, not gazillionaires by any stretch. We weren't flying around in private jets, but I went to a private school. My dad had his own business, but I always feel that I had the hunger as a youngster that many other people would have had if they had nothing, because it wasn't that I had nothing, but I knew I always wanted more. Yes, I was very appreciative of everything I had, but I didn't want the business class tickets that my dad was buying as I wanted the first class or the private jet. I didn't want the apartment in Spain. I wanted the mansion in Hollywood. So, despite us having money, I was always very, very driven. Not because I wanted to do better than my dad, but just because I wanted more for myself. But how did you feel, and how did it make you act as a child, coming from, by the stands of it, you had a lot more money than I did in relative terms?
See, I think we all have our stories, and all depends on where we are actually growing up, your atmosphere, your surroundings. So for me, it was a bit different, because at that point I was just mentally not prepared to understand that I have to do something for myself. And at that point I was more dependent. And dependency did not take away the hunger. So if anything that was being given to me, I wanted a better version of that. So I always had that kind of a thing, that on top of the line, this is something that I was actually just looking at what was available, with everything being available for me. But I think that's a good part of my life as well. That's a very good part of my life, because I would consider that chapter of my life gave me the highs at a very early age. So my rest of my life could be probably adjusted based on the falls.
Did you ever work in the family business?
Yes, to probably being pulled in to come to the office and be there for some hours, and that's how. But not really actually working for my family business. When it was going down as well, then it was too late for me to even get a grip on that one. It was to do with electronics in 90s. It was taken over by the wave brought in by China. We could not compete with the pricing and everything else, and we lost a lot of money. We lost a lot of market, and anything that probably what you have built, my parents built for 20 odd years, they were still believing it's going to turn back, but then again they kept on pursuing something that didn't happen.
And when you say the business went down, I mean the business ultimately went bankrupt. They lost everything.
I would consider bankruptcy is a point where probably you will consider as an end. But again, we went into a point where we were looking at being debt-ridden people knocking on our doors to probably return, and things that probably could not go well. And it came down, where do we get our groceries from as well?
It got that bad.
Yeah, it really got that bad.
And are we talking about you moved houses, you lost cars?
Moved houses, went into rental apartments, things that probably could not, and then started working.
How old were you at this point?
I was turning 22, 23. And then it was a time to restart something. I started working on, first of all, in India to see what I can do. I got some direction, and that gave me a little bit of a kind of a kick on my backside to probably start working harder. And that was a good starting point for me to work on a sector that I did not know anything about. I worked hard for 2 years. It was a good part for me to probably learn that everything is possible if you're actually persistent. But it was not what I would expect it to be.
Would you have described yourself still as spoilt at that point, or do you think by the time you were 21, 22 and the business, your family business had gone, were you ready to be a realist and go on?
The shaky part, and again, I might be a spoiled brat because of my parents, but then again, that's where probably my love for my parents was there as well. So looking at what was happening, so it always shakes you up. At that point, it was something that I took myself as a responsible person to probably see what I can contribute. Started working on warehousing, started working on some sectors over there with the biggest wholesale market for spices in India, in Delhi, and got some traction. Worked hard to get something that probably was manageable, but that was not my story to probably be followed. 2 years, I was married, I had a child, and it also took a little bit of a lowdown with the business that I started in India. Then it was time for me to probably just figure out new waters, new shores, to see where I can do what better as a new fresh slate.
Was it an arranged marriage, by the way?
No, it was a love marriage.
Okay.
So it was something that probably I did not take away the brat in me, but then again, for sure, I would consider what I would want to be in, I need to probably like it as well. So it was mutual between me and my wife.
Is that unusual?
At that point,
India,
it was not unusual, but it was just very initial days of the society to accept having love marriages.
You've killed all my questions on arranged marriages now. I was interested to understand more about them. And I guess last question on that timeline, and then maybe we can move on to Dubai. How did your parents ever recover, or did they ever recover? Did they rebuild in business, and what was their psychology like as someone who had so much and then lost it all?
See, I'll tell you a little bit more so that you can understand my parents. So my parents have not been as your typical standard social people. They have always looked upon for stereotypes to be broken as well. So I get my strength from my parents. My mother started working in India and managing 500 odd employees in 80s when women were not as much operational at any workplace as well. So at that point, it was being spoken that this is something that is beyond the norms, but she did that. Working hard comes from them. So when everything was lost, we are from a background which has emotions that drive us. As a Punjabi, this is a huge thing, huge quotient for us. Emotion and emotional connect and bond is very important. So once they figured out that you are only known for your bank account, not for what you do, is the time that they actually just took their hearts off India. So at that point, they didn't want to be dependent on anyone. And when my business was going down as well, they left for New Zealand, and they wanted to do it on their own.
Left to start a new life in New Zealand.
New life, and with a very small kind of a backing, they went over there and they worked plucking apples in the orchards as well.
Wow.
So they did not give up, and that's where the strength comes from. And when they did that, and they were not willing to probably look at to coming back to India, that's my decision was firmer that I'm going down and I'm coming to Dubai. And that's where probably it was early days in Dubai.
How long ago? When is this?
21 years ago now.
Okay. So
2003.
Early 2003.
Yeah, so I came.
And why Dubai?
I had my sister over here, so I thought let's have the family kind of a platform where we can call our parents back over here as well. So that was my objective. My wife, when we were married, she still had a family that was very wealthy, and things that was a background that probably if I wanted to choose to be in her family side of business, I could have easily still stayed over there and did everything. But then again, my wife supported me on the point where she could have chosen a better version of her life, but she chose to probably starve with me and to support me to when it came down to we did not have money to buy a shawarma for 2 weeks when we were here, but we made it together.
And did she not receive support from her family then?
They wanted to, but then again, as a social structure back in UK and India, it's very different. So for us, like I said, emotionally and self-respect is a very big thing. So when it comes down to taking any kind of support from your wife's family side was a cliche at that point. And I also believe that probably that has been like fed in with me being raised by my parents. So self-respect comes first. So I chose to starve, then take money or take any support.
Do you have children of your own?
Yes, I have children of my own.
How do you behave towards them as a parent now, based on your story and your journey? And for example, having that self-respect and wanting to starve. How do you feel towards your kids, and how do you try and teach them to be now?
So as I am someone who's learned a lot for the last 21 years, I believe that knowledge is something that you need to pass. It only gets increased. It only gets into a good zone that probably you can learn and you can probably share the knowledge with anybody. And for me, age is not a factor. I believe practical knowledge is bigger than a degree in the world. Today I can possibly beat an engineer. I'm a strategist with degrees that probably might have been given to somebody, but I can beat them on what I do because of my practical experience and knowledge about this region and how I've excelled in that. So I have given my kids the best of the education that I can, letting them to have their wings by choosing what stream that they want to do. I've not pushed them to be in my business. I've not asked them to actually just support me on anything. I've been very communicative on that, but I've kept a check on that I don't want them to believe that anything that probably I have, they inherit that. They have to start working, because if I'm not going to give them what I learned of the way that you can become self-sufficient by your own hard work, by your own kind of learnings, by your own falls, is something that I'm giving it to them. So it's very important for me that I leave a legacy of not money, I leave a legacy of knowledge with them.
How old are they?
My son is in Kelowna in Canada right now. He's studying mechanical engineering.
Okay.
So he just turned 21, had the first drink with me. My daughter is 24. She is a nutritionist from King's College in London.
Okay.
And she's getting married next month.
So let's go back to the Dubai story then. So you came to Dubai. Your sister was here. What was your first steps? What was the first work?
The first work was to find out how to make a CV, and then get myself mentally prepared to take orders, and to see that if I can actually get a job. A very fresh market. So I remember buying Khaleej Times and Gulf News for classifieds to see if there's any job opportunities, because I don't bring anything professionally as a degree. I only bring something that I can talk, and I know that I'm a people's person, so selling is a good sort of a superpower that I had. I believed in that. So I started working on making my CV, was sitting on internet cafes at that time in Dera, sending out emails, putting it out, and to see that if I can be called for an interview. That was a part. 2 months visit visa that was getting over. So I had 10, 11 interviews that were given. And
what jobs were you looking for at this point? Anything?
Any sales job that could be. So it was from banking to whatever. I was been offered a credit card sales, insurance, where you don't get money, but then again on your commissions. So I didn't go for it because I already had a family, and my part was to bring my family to Dubai once I get a job. At that point, it was hard, but then again, giving up was the thing that was it was writing on the wall, because I didn't bring too much money. I didn't have too much of a background. So walking from Sheikh Zayed to Dera as well has happened in the month of May, June, and having nosebleeds coming from the northern part of India. I come from a cooler place. So sun was not something that we were very friendlier with me and them, me and sun, to probably go in the same kind of weather level. I had to adjust, and that adjustment only hardened me up. So my first call that I got was when I went for my interview, and this manager who's sitting over there, the gentleman was very sort of straightforward about things. He asked me, what do you bring on the table for me? And why should I give you a job? I said, you want to get into a sales job, you don't even have a driving license, and you don't have experience in UAE as well. So at that point, I was like literally broken, and the Punjabi, the aggression in me came out, and I was very vocal about it. I said, you need to give this job to me because you possibly owe this to me. He said, like, why do I owe this job to you? I said, because somebody gave it to you. You got a job, and for that job, you got a visa. Your visa got you the license and the experience. If you're not going to pass it on to me, how am I going to get the visa? How am I going to get my license? And when will I get my experience? So if I need to probably do something, I need to get an opportunity. I need a platform to perform. And I left from that. And I was like a little bit more sort of broken to a point where you get yourself into a zone that you feel that there's no kind of hope, but you are on the verge of giving up, because I had only 10 days left for my visit visa. When I left, 45 minutes later, I got a call from them. They said, come back. And I went back, and this guy, he sat with me, and he said, he is, I would believe that he's still there. He is from, or was from, Pakistan, and sat down with me, and he said, Mr. Singh, you have fire in you. Don't let that be down, because you have something that you can actually achieve, and we would like to offer you a job. So they offered me a job of 4,500 dirhams. At that point, I readily accepted it, and wanted to prove myself. So the company itself had a kind of, at that time, you had a breaking period for the afternoons. So you had to work till 1 and 4. It used to be off for offices, and you come back at 4 o'clock. And I used to stay in Sharjah. So reaching to the office, I had to take 3 cabs. One going to city center Sharjah, sharing cab, then taking a sharing cab from there to Dera, and then from there to Shindaga. To the area that I was working.
There'll have been nothing left of your 4,500 dirhams with all these taxis.
No. That 4,500 dirhams was a mirage. So it was not that. And again, I landed up into a situation where I was politically not right for the company, because they had a little bit of a political situation where I was hired on top of somebody who was supposed to be hired for a group of people who wanted him to be there. So I was always been like shoved off. I was being given a hard deal of not getting any training, nothing. I just had something that I had to learn on my own, go out and get business.
And what were you selling? I forget what the
Printing, digital
Right.
printing, anything to do with that we can come up with any support towards the events and the exhibition sector. So for me, at that point, learning was on my own. Printing machines was like alien territory for me. Artworks, which now is such an easy thing, but then again, it used to come in CDs. For me, that only contained music, but again, there was artwork. So I learned that. Started working, reaching out to new people, yellow pages, sending emails, setting up meetings, and started getting some response as well. The first 2 months was hard, but then again, I was given a target of making up a point where I would be given a commission to that as well. But before that, within 15 days of my being hired, I was fired from that job. And I was fired because there was politically things that probably were not right, and people had given a very negative impact towards I don't have anything that I bring on the table. I was shattered at that one because my visa was over as well, and I had to go back, and I thought that this is it. I reached out to the owner of the company for a reason that probably I would not give it without a fight. And I went over him and he asked me what happened because I've heard that you are not working and you're not a team member or team player. I said, let me show you what I've been doing. And then I went with all the quotations that I had sent, which was roughly in 15 days, I had sent out 800,000 worth of quotations. So he was like, wow, you have reached out to these people? I said, yes. He said that was a negative report that reached to me, and he rehired me. At that point,
How did that go down with the people who'd fired you?
I was the villain. And then it all was looking prettier, but I had my wife who was 9 months pregnant, and she was about to deliver a baby. Her father had an accident and he died, and she went into a bit of a lowdown on her mental state. I asked my employer if I need to go back at this point, and that was an emergency for the family. So he allowed me. He said, no problems, you go and we'll send you the visa. And I went back, and for 3 months I was waiting for a visa. When the visa came, I came back, and that's when my salary was given to me was 2,700 dirhams, not 4,500.
Right.
So they said, rest, everything is going to be commission. I worked, and I got a lot of business for the company. I worked hard towards opening up new sectors, new companies, new brands to be brought in. And I was somebody who was been looked upon that I'm stepping on a lot of people's toes. So I was doing well. I made a lot of contacts, networking. That was the hunger that you spoke about. That hunger, I cannot take it away from me, because that was a time that I knew I had a reason. For me, it's important. When anyone in their lives, they find a reason, that's when you actually get yourself focused. So my reason was my family, my children, bringing my parents back, because my son was born at that time as well. So I had to be responsible for what it was. So it was now or never. So at that point, I got myself doing all my targets, no commissions been paid, no salary increases. At that point, I resigned.
Or what, they weren't paying you the commissions on the deals that you were owed?
No, I didn't get my commissions. I was not even getting my salaries because the company did not pay salaries on time. So 2 months, and I could not work on a point where I brought my family.
But I assume that you were very vocal about this as well. And
I was, and at that point, they came back to me with making an offer to me, making it 4,500 dirhams. But it was very politically driven. So then the next day I was been called and said that no, we cannot raise your salary because the other people will be asking for more salary increases. So that would not be something that we can avoid. I said, then I'm going to resign. And at that point, my daughter has just got herself admitted to the school. So at that point, my employer, he said, put a ban on Harmeek. 6 months ban was a valid thing at that point for employers to put. So I cannot come back for 6 months. Because I was in sales, but I didn't understand that. I said and I went to him and I asked him, I said, sir, you have asked this. You have had a lot of people to go, but then why me that you're putting a ban on me? If you cannot pay me, or if there's things that I've worked very hard for this. My daughter's future is something that I don't want you to have a question mark on. He was very arrogant, and he mentioned to me, I do not have anything to do with your daughter or with your family. You can leave. And that time my vocal part came in, and I just put my hand and banged it on the table as well. And I said, what you have done today, I am not going to probably have anything to say, but then again, I am going to be back. I will be back, and I promise you I'll be back.
What is a ban? Sorry, you said you were banned for 6 months.
Yeah, so there's a labor ban. An employer at that point can put, if any employee is resigning, they can put a ban on me.
Oh, so it's not just banning you from his business. You can't get another job with anyone for 6 months.
I cannot come back to UAE.
Right.
Not even on a visit visa. So 6 months is taken off for my family and me to go back and come back and start afresh. So now it's not there, but then again, at that point, it was something which was a stigma. Oh, wow, you've got a ban on you. So that was a medal for me. I went back, but then again, the good part was that people that I was working with, one of the companies that I was providing my services to, they were a British company. They loved what I did, so they offered me a job. They were in Free Zone, Media City, very fresh at that point, and only visa I can get was from Free Zone. So they offered me a job of 6,500. I readily took it. 2 months down the line, I was back in Dubai. My daughter's year was not wasted as well, so I was back. They tried their best to probably have seen that probably I do not come back, but I was. And then started happening that all the business, all the clients that I had created for them, they started fall off because there was no service levels. They started to reach out to me and wanted me to actually service them. I asked my employer, just like, I don't care because it's a different sector. So if you're doing my work, which is from 10 to 5 and 5 days a week, whatever that you do after, I'll have no issues on that. And that was a turning point. At that point, I started working from 5 till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I was working for myself and getting myself as a freelancer, doing a lot of big projects, having a lot of clients with me, and was roughly 250, 300,000 dirhams a month that I was earning. And at that point, I reached out to my employer in Media City and I said, like, that'll be it, because I think I will have to take a call. And I'm sure that you're looking at the growth, so I would like to set up my own. As an entrepreneur, that's what I would like to probably be in. They wished me luck, and I still remember his name is Neil Bryans, if he listens. So I thank him for trusting and believing in me, and he is always reaching out to me, telling me how proud he is of what happened that time. And then Plan B was formed, and I started working for myself. I was the driver, the accountant, the salesperson, all by myself. So started working, started getting business, and then rest is history, because then I had my first employee, then employees, and 2008 came with the recession, where probably I heard you had a hit, but for me that was an opportunity. So I had cash in hand. I took more warehouses. I expanded my business from just printing to fabrication to exhibition stands to events, and then so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Tell me, you say when you started your business, you were salesman, van driver, receptionist, everything all in one. I always say that one of the biggest delusions people have when they want to go and set up in business on their own is, because they want to be the boss. They want to have an easier life. They want to have more holidays, etc. And nobody appreciates what it's like in those early stages of the business. I mean, obviously you sound you've come from that hunger, and and you've kind of fallen down and worked your way up from the bottom. So when you started in business, running your own business, was any of that a surprise to you, or did you know that you'd be assuming all these roles and you were excited to get on with it?
Like I mentioned, once you find you have a reason, it's so much easier. So the focal point, it never meant that I would consider, oh, it's late, I'm tired. I never got tired. I was so hungry, I wanted to do, and I also just got into the habit of knowing credibility is not something that you get on the shelf. So working is good, but then again, what I was creating was a credible brand where people trusted. I had the town talk about that there is one gentleman, Mr. Singh. If he says it'll happen, it'll happen. So that's where I figured it out, that it's something that I've created. I should not let it go down. I worked really hard. I had also created people around me that wanted to actually be passionately driven. I created a team that was hungry as well. So handpicked them, started working on things, and made sure that we are looking at opportunities, but we are not rushing into things. We're doing it in a way that we are not having a foot in the mouth syndrome, not overcommitting, but always looking at the quality that has been delivered, looking at not repeating ourselves. So the creative part also helped me. I am a creative person, so I see things differently. I see that probably what somebody asks me to do, I add on what I do. I've always learned the art of, if the client has given you $100, return $150. So they see the value, and that's worked for me.
you've got some fantastic accolades. I mean, so many. I can't even remember them. I've got to read them off my list. I mean, you've been Entrepreneur of the Year. You've been Business Innovator of the Year. You've one of the world's 100 most powerful Sikhs. You've been listed among the GCC's 100 most powerful Indians, and many more. I mean, what do your parents say now? You know, obviously having known that spoilt brat, and then having lost everything themselves, but you know, carried on with that drive and their hunger. I mean, they must be phenomenally proud of everything you've achieved.
They're very proud, and I think that's what it comes from. My upbringing has been my reason of who I am. So I have looked at my parents to work hard, never to have anything that is giving up. Giving up is not an option. I've seen my parents to pluck apples in our orchard when they were the top business people on that platform. And again, see, when you are at a point where you are high up in a stage, falling down is not something that everybody can adapt. A lot of people consume to a point where they live in their past, and they do not see that they can reach back to that point is where probably people fail. I've all this goes back to my upbringing from my parents, and they are definitely proud. Very recently, 2 weeks ago, I was chosen as the icons of UAE as an Indian. There were 17 people who were chosen who made a mark in UAE, and they have made India represented well and being proud of. And it was phenomenal to probably have my mother walk the red carpet with me. And that was the kind of pride that I see in their eyes, and looking at that. My father told me that it's a very funny feeling, but it's a very proud feeling as well, because you were known as my son, but now I'm known as your father.
I mean, as someone who is obviously phenomenally driven, who wants to deliver $150 of value for anyone giving you $100, and has had to work and find your why. When you see the ocean of entitlement nowadays, I mean, how would you speak to someone like that? How would you try and change someone's mentality? Who, I mean, let's give a bit of context, Stephen. I read a newspaper article the other night that was talking about a guy, and the headline was, I've been unable to find a job for 9 years despite having a master's degree. And I read this with I think equal amounts of horror and disgust, that not only is this guy lazy enough to not be able to find a job for 9 years, but that the newspaper, a mainstream publication, it was a Wall Street Journal or a New York Times, they write it with such a sympathetic tone that this poor guy has been unable to find a job for 9 years. That society has just not given him enough. I mean, how do you look at the world now? As someone who has been banned from being allowed to work. With a newborn daughter.
It's very fragmented. It's very fragmented. I see a lot of hungry and really, really pepped up people. I work with Gen Z, I work with millennials from my dinosaur ages as well. So all of these people bring a different kind of personalities that I deal with. Entitlement is something that only allows you to be in a comfort zone. That's a comfort zone that probably when I am talking, when I'm dealing with people as well, I have challenges being thrown. I'm a mentor for a lot of people that I do. I have interns on every summers. I look at that, what I can actually give back to the culture, to the people, to the industry. I believe you need to probably just shake them up, because reality is that in my times, even if we talk about numbers on data, the population at that time was limited to a point. Today, one position or one area of expertise that you're trying to do, there are millions of people trying to do the same thing. How do you actually survive? So it's a matter of survival. It's the mind over matter kind of a situation. If you want to give up, that's the easiest thing to do. Being entitled is again something that goes with the surroundings that you have, with the upbringing that you get, or the drive that you don't have. And if you don't have a reason for yourself, you're aimless. For me, if you are driving a car and you're just going on a loop from Sheikh Zayed to Jebel Ali and going back and forth, you're just doing a loop. Till you do not have a GPRS set for a location, you don't have a destination, you're just failing yourself. You need to have destinations. And I don't believe that I need to scale Mount Everest. It needs to be smaller destinations.
Has your destination changed along the years, or has your destination always been your kids and your family, or your why?
No, I think that's something that I mentioned earlier as well. If we are going to be who we are from what we know of what we know, is something that is going to fail us. Adaptability for each year is different. Each phase is different. Each sector, everything, probably what I have seen, so many changes in the life. I came from a part where we had landlines, then came pagers, then came mobiles. Now you are having flying taxis. So if I'm going to actually just be stuck in one phase, I'm not going to adapt to it. I consider myself as water. I'm fluid. I adapt. Any curve, I take that curve. Bend, learning. That's what probably is important for me. I think that adaptability has been my key to my survival, my sustainability, and I learned today on what I'm doing with AI. So if I would probably be held back with what I know, my knowledge, this is who I am, and this is what my family and everything else. I'm beyond my family. I'm looking at my community. I'm a very proud Sikh, and I represent my community globally right now. We're doing the Global Sikh Awards in Dubai on 14th of December. We tend to be a kind of a community who is there for everybody, and we believe and respect everybody. So for me, that's important as a message. So if I've got an opportunity, and that's something that I believe that everybody who gets an opportunity, they have got a responsibility as well. You will waste an opportunity if you're not actually doing the right things when you are at a position. So I'm trying to do that. It's the circle of life is not limited to my family. It's my community. It's UAE, who I'm very proud to be my acquired home. And my loyalties for UAE has been like on the top level as well. So anything that I do, I'm a very big and a very good brand ambassador for UAE as well.
Do you see yourself being in the UAE for forever?
I'm not going to leave UAE for sure. But then again, businesses have been ventured. Not all my eggs are in one basket. So we have plans. But UAE always is going to be something that probably is my ground.
You're very passionate about things to do with women. I mean, you're the founder of the GCC Menopause Summit, and you lead the Women's Run as well, which is the largest platform for female athletes in the region. Where has this passion come from?
It comes from again back from my family background, where I spoke about my mother. I had strong women in my life. I had always seen that stereotypes are based on the fact that when a woman speaks, she's not speaking for herself, she's speaking for the whole clan. And for me, breaking a stereotype is always only going to make sure that we're creating an equal platform, an equal society, gender equality that I've been voicing it out. I was on an interview just recently that UAE actually representing in UN, they spoke about that their main key concern as a global goals as well is gender equality. Recent news about having a big consortium or a corporate, the board has to have one female member. Look at the ministers over here. So we're leading from the front over here. For me, it is important that we, first of all, get ourselves aligned that equality is a thing. Equal opportunities is a thing. So we're late on that. And gender equality, for looking at my mother, looking at the females, that probably my family as well, I plan to see if I can make a difference. So Women's Run happened by default. Sports is something that is embedded in me. It's a language that the world speaks. You don't need to probably speak any language. Sports binds you together. It is a competition that still everybody's a winner. For me, that's a message of peace as well. So I have been a sports person all my life. When Women's Run happened, I was a part of Dubai Marathon, and I learned the art of whatever that was happening. I was being told by the Athletic Federation of UAE to see if I want to partner up with them, and Women's Run, I readily took it. If I have to show you my financial statements, you will say, why are you doing this? But then again, it's not business, it's passion. So I've made sure that I'm supporting. I got a title and a tag very recently, Man Supporting Women. So I take that with very high esteem. And for me, any platform that I can bring to life, which brings in equality, this will be there.
Listen, Harmeek, I'm very conscious you're a busy man with an afternoon of interviews to get to. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks for being here with us today. It's been both a pleasure and inspiring to hear your story, and I'm sure the audience have loved listening to it too. And I hope we can get together again sometime in the future to dig deeper and learn even more.
Thank you, Matt. And learning never stops. So yes, for
Absolutely.
sure, I learned a lot of things about you as well. It's always mutual. And thank you so much. It was very friendly and a casual, this is what I like, conversational, so nothing scripted. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.